Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you've chosen to spend this time with me today. Before we begin, I need to share an important disclaimer with you. Everything we discuss today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your situation is unique to you, and before making any financial decisions, you should always speak with a licensed financial advisor who understands your personal circumstances. With that said, let's dive in. I want you to imagine something for a moment. You're lying awake at 3 in the morning. The house is quiet. Your partner is sleeping beside you. And there it is again, that gnawing feeling in your stomach, that question that won't leave you alone. Do I have enough? Will my money last? Have I made terrible mistakes that I can't undo? If you felt this way, I want you to know something right now. You are not alone. In fact, you're part of a majority. Research shows that more than 60% of Australians approaching retirement feel anxious about their financial future. And here's what breaks my heart. Many of these people are worrying unnecessarily. They're losing sleep over myths, over misinformation, over things that simply aren't true. And those myths, they're not just stealing your peace of mind, they're costing you real money. Thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes more. Today, we're going to dismantle 7 of the most dangerous retirement myths circulating in Australia right now. We're going to look at where these myths came from, why they persist, and most importantly, what the truth actually is. This isn't going to be a quick chat. We're going to take our time. We're going to dig deep, because you deserve more than surface-level advice. You deserve to understand the full picture. You've worked hard for decades. You've paid your taxes. You've contributed to your super. You deserve clarity. So settle in, make yourself a cup of tea if you'd like, get comfortable, and let's begin this journey together. The Australian context. How did we get here? Before we tackle these myths head-on, we need to understand how we arrived at this moment. Because retirement in Australia today looks nothing like retirement did for our parents' generation. And that shift has created confusion. It's created anxiety. And it's created fertile ground for myths to take root and spread. Let's go back to the 1960s and 70s. If you were retiring then, life was simpler in many ways. Most people had worked for 1 or 2 employers their entire career. You got your gold watch, you got your defined benefit pension, you knew exactly what you'd receive every fortnight for the rest of your life. The age pension was more generous relative to living costs. Housing was more affordable. A decent home in a capital city might have cost 3 or 4 times your annual salary. Try finding that today. Most importantly, you didn't have to make complex investment decisions. Your employer made them for you. The government made them for you. Your job was to turn up to work, do your job well, and the system would take care of the rest. Then came the 1980s and 90s. Everything changed. Superannuation, as we know it, was introduced in 1992. Suddenly, everyday Australians were thrust into the role of investment managers. You had to choose funds, choose investment options, understand things like growth versus conservative strategies, understand asset allocation. Most people had never been taught these things. There was no manual, no comprehensive education system. You were just expected to figure it out. At the same time, defined benefit pensions largely disappeared from the private sector. They were replaced with accumulation funds. Your retirement income was no longer guaranteed. It depended on how much you contributed, how well your investments performed, how the stock market behaved, how your fund manager performed. The responsibility shifted from employer to employee, from institution to individual. And here's where it gets even more complicated. The rules kept changing. The contribution caps changed. The tax rates changed. The age pension assets test changed. The preservation age changed. Every few years, it seemed a new government would tinker with the system. Each change made sense in isolation, perhaps, but together, they created a labyrinth, a system so complex that even financial advisors sometimes struggled to keep up with. Now, layer on top of that the global financial crisis of 2008. Many Australians watched their super balances drop by 30, 40, even 50% in a matter of months. The trust was broken. The fear set in. Then came the mining boom and bust. Then came record low interest rates that stayed low for a decade. Then came a property market that seemed to defy gravity. Then came a pandemic that upended everything we thought we knew about economic stability. And throughout all of this, the media has bombarded us with conflicting messages. One expert says you need $1.2 million to retire comfortably. Another says you need $2.5 million. Another says you can do it on much less if you're smart. One newspaper screams that retirees are living in poverty. Another shows retirees sipping champagne on cruise ships, traveling the world, while younger generations struggle to buy homes. Is it any wonder we're confused? Is it any wonder myths have taken hold? The truth is, retirement planning in Australia today is genuinely complex. It requires you to understand superannuation rules, Centrelink rules, tax rules, investment principles, estate planning, aged care funding, and more. But here's the good news. Once you understand the core principles, once you see through the myths, once you know what's actually true, the path forward becomes clearer, much clearer. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Myth number 1. You need at least $1 million in super to retire. Let's start with perhaps the most pervasive myth of all, the one that causes more anxiety than almost any other, the belief that unless you have a 7-figure super balance, you simply cannot afford to retire. Where did this myth come from? It came from a grain of truth that got wildly distorted. Various industry bodies have published research about comfortable retirement standards. The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, for example, publishes figures each year showing how much money you need to fund a comfortable lifestyle. For a couple, that figure has often been quoted as somewhere around $70,000 per year. Someone then did the mathematics. If you need $70,000 per year, and you might live for 30 years in retirement, that's $2.1 million. Even accounting for investment returns, you'd need well over $1 million to be safe. And suddenly, $1 million became the magic number, the number that gets repeated in newspapers, on television, at dinner parties. $1 million. But here's what that calculation completely ignores: the age pension. The age pension is not a poverty payment. It's not just for people who have nothing. It's a foundational part of Australia's retirement income system. It was designed to be. And for a couple who own their own home, the maximum age pension currently provides somewhere in the vicinity of $40,000 per year. That's tax-free income. Now, you might not receive the full age pension if you have significant assets. The assets test reduces your payment as your wealth increases. But even a part pension is valuable, very valuable. Let's talk about Bruce and Jenny. They're a fictional couple, but they represent thousands of real Australians I've worked with over the years. Bruce is 67, Jenny is 65. They own their home outright in a regional city, no mortgage. The house is worth about $600,000. They have $400,000 in superannuation combined. They have another $50,000 in a savings account for emergencies. By the $1 million rule, Bruce and Jenny are in trouble. They don't even have half of what they supposedly need. But let's look at their actual situation. Their home doesn't count toward the assets test for the age pension, so their assessable assets are $450,000. At current thresholds, they would qualify for a significant Part Age pension, somewhere around $30,000 per year combined. Now, let's say they set up an account-based pension from their super. A conservative approach might see them draw down 5% per year. That's $20,000 from their $400,000 balance, $30,000 from the age pension, $20,000 from their superannuation. That's $50,000 per year, tax-free because they're over 60 and drawing from super, and the age pension is tax-free. $50,000 per year. No mortgage, no work expenses, no need to save for retirement because they're already there. Bruce and Jenny aren't just surviving, they're living well. They take a modest holiday each year. They help their grandchildren occasionally. They eat out once a week. They have hobbies they enjoy. They sleep peacefully at night. They didn't need $1 million. They needed a plan. They needed to understand how the different pieces fit together. Now, I'm not saying $400,000 is enough for everyone. Your circumstances might be different. You might have a mortgage. You might live in an expensive city. You might have health issues requiring extra spending. You might want a lifestyle that costs more. But the point is this: the $1 million myth ignores the age pension. It ignores home ownership. It ignores individual circumstances. It creates fear where none is warranted. Here's the principle you need to understand. Your retirement income comes from three potential sources: your superannuation, the age pension, and any other investments or income streams you might have. These three sources work together. They're not separate. The age pension is means-tested, which means it adjusts based on your other assets and income. As you draw down your super over time, your assets decrease, and your age pension entitlement can actually increase. It's a system that's designed to provide a safety net, and for most Australians who own their home, it works remarkably well. So if you're lying awake worrying because you don't have $1 million, please hear this. You may be absolutely fine. You need to assess your actual situation, your actual needs, your actual entitlements, not some arbitrary number that someone declared in a newspaper article. Myth number 2. You should move all your super to cash as you approach retirement. This myth is born from fear, and I understand that fear completely. You spent decades building your superannuation balance. You've watched it grow slowly but steadily. And then you remember 2008. Or you remember the market volatility during the pandemic. Or you simply imagine what would happen if there was another crash just as you were about to retire. The thought is terrifying. What if you lose 30% of your balance right before you need it? What if the market crashes and wipes out years of savings? So the thinking goes like this. As you get close to retirement, move everything to cash. Move it to capital guaranteed options. Accept lower returns in exchange for safety. Protect what you've built. On the surface, this sounds prudent, conservative, safe. But here's what this approach misses. You're not retiring for 1 year. You're retiring for potentially 20, 25, or 30 years. For many of that time, you'll still be relatively young, healthy, and active. You still need your money to grow. Inflation is the silent killer of retirement income. Even modest inflation of 2 to 3% per year will cut your purchasing power in half over 25 years. What costs $100 today will cost over $200 in 25 years at just 3% inflation. If all your money is sitting in cash, earning 1 or 2%, you're going backwards in real terms every single year. Your balance might look stable, but its buying power is eroding. Let me introduce you to another couple.
Let's call them Tom and Margaret. Tom retired at 65 with $500,000 in super. He was nervous about the markets. He'd heard too many stories about people losing money. So he moved everything to a cash option, earning about 2% per year. Margaret, his wife, retired at the same age with the same balance. She was nervous too, but she spoke with an advisor. She kept a diversified portfolio, about 50% in growth assets like shares and property, about 50% in defensive assets like bonds and cash. Fast forward 10 years, both Tom and Margaret have been drawing $40,000 per year to live on. Let's assume modest investment returns and modest inflation. Tom's balance has dwindled to around $300,000. His cash option barely kept pace with inflation while he was drawing money out. He's worried. He's cutting back on spending. He's wondering if he'll run out. Margaret's balance is sitting around $380,000. She's in a better position, not wealthy, but more comfortable, more secure. Her diversified approach meant she earned better returns over that decade, even accounting for the ups and downs. The mathematics might seem small in this example, $80,000 difference, but over a full retirement, those differences compound. They become enormous. Now, I'm not suggesting you should have all your money in high-risk investments as you approach retirement. That would be foolish. Sequence risk is real. If you retire right into a major market crash and you're drawing money out, you can deplete your capital quickly. The solution is balance. It's diversification. It's having enough in defensive assets to cover your spending needs for the next few years while keeping the rest invested for growth to combat inflation over the long term. A common strategy is to keep 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or very conservative investments. The rest can remain in a balanced or growth portfolio. That way, if markets crash, you're not forced to sell shares at a loss. You live off your cash buffer while markets recover. This is called bucketing, and it works beautifully for many retirees. Here's the principle. Retirement is not a point in time. It's a phase of life that could last as long as your working life did. Your investment strategy needs to reflect that reality. It needs to balance safety today with growth for tomorrow. Myth number 3. The age pension is only for poor people. This myth causes people to make terrible decisions. I've seen it happen countless times. Someone has worked hard their whole life. They built a decent super balance, maybe $600,000, maybe $700,000. They feel uncomfortable taking government support. They think the age pension is charity. They think it's for people who didn't plan properly. So they structure their affairs to avoid the age pension entirely. They keep all their assets in super or in their own names. They draw down faster than they need to. They spend money they could have saved just to stay off Centrelink. This is a costly mistake, and it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what the age pension actually is. The age pension is not a handout. It's not welfare in the traditional sense. It's a universal pension system that you've paid for through decades of taxation. It's your money, money that was collected through the Medicare levy, through income tax, through GST, through company tax on businesses you worked for or owned. The age pension was designed to provide a foundation for retirement. It was designed to work alongside personal savings. It was designed to be means-tested so that those with greater means receive less, but not to cut out everyone except the destitute. In fact, around 60% of Australian retirees receive at least some age pension. 60%. That includes people who have planned well, people who have saved diligently, people who own their homes, people who have super balances in the many hundreds of thousands of dollars. The assets test thresholds are actually quite reasonable. For a couple who own their home, you can currently have accessible assets of several $100,000 and still receive a part pension. The reduction isn't dramatic, it's gradual. Let's return to our earlier example of Bruce and Jenny with $450,000 in assessable assets. They might receive around $30,000 per year. That's a significant amount. Over 20 years of retirement, that's $600,000 in today's money, even more when you factor in indexation. $600,000. Would you turn that down because of pride? Because of a misunderstanding about what it represents? Now, some people do structure their affairs to maximize their age pension entitlement. They might gift money to children within the allowable limits. They might invest in assets that aren't counted, like funeral bonds or certain home renovations. They might use their super to pay off debt. Is this gaming the system? No, it's understanding the system. It's making informed choices within the legal framework that exists. The rules are there. They're published. They're meant to be used. Using them wisely is not immoral. It's sensible. Here's what I want you to understand. If you qualify for the age pension, even a part pension, you should claim it. It's not charity. It's part of your retirement income system. It provides valuable benefits beyond just the cash payment. It gives you a pensioner concession card that reduces costs on everything from utilities to medicines to counsel rates. Over a 20 or 30-year retirement, these savings add up to tens of thousands of dollars. The principle here is simple. Use every legal tool available to you. The age pension is a significant tool. Don't leave it on the table because of pride or misunderstanding. Myth number 4. You should pay off all debt before you retire. This one sounds like common sense, doesn't it? Debt is bad. Retirement is about security. Therefore, you should pay off every dollar you owe before you retire. Not so fast. Debt comes in different forms, and not all debt is created equal. High-interest consumer debt, credit cards charging 18 or 20%, store finance charging similar rates. Yes, absolutely, pay these off as quickly as possible. This kind of debt is toxic. It's destroying your wealth. But what about a home mortgage at 4 or 5%? What about an investment property loan at a similar rate? These require more nuanced thinking. Let me paint you a scenario. You're 64 years old, you have $400,000 in superannuation, you have a mortgage on your home with $150,000 remaining. The interest rate is 4.5%. Option 1. You withdraw $150,000 from your super and pay off the mortgage completely. You retire debt-free. You now have $250,000 in super. Option 2. You keep the mortgage. You retire with $400,000 in super. You use some of your super pension drawdowns to make the mortgage payments. Which option is better? Most people instinctively choose option 1. Debt-free feels safe. It feels right. But let's examine this carefully. If you pay off the mortgage, you've moved $150,000 from inside the tax-free superannuation environment to paying off a debt charging 4.5%. Meanwhile, that money could be earning 6 or 7% inside super, even in a balanced fund. The difference between what you earn and what you pay is working in your favor. But there's more. Remember the age pension assets test? Your home doesn't count, but your super does. If you reduce your super balance by $150,000 to pay off your home, you've reduced your assessable assets. That might increase your age pension entitlement. The mathematics can get complex, but for many people, keeping a modest mortgage into retirement and managing the payments from super can leave you better off overall. You have more assets working for you, you might qualify for more age pension, you maintain better cash flow flexibility. Now there's a psychological element too. Some people simply cannot sleep at night with any debt hanging over them. For these people, the peace of mind from being debt-free is worth more than the mathematical advantage. And that's okay. Your mental well-being matters. But if you can be comfortable with the numbers, if you can see debt as a tool rather than a burden, you might find that keeping some low-interest debt into retirement is actually advantageous. Let me tell you about Frank and Linda. Frank is a builder. Linda is a teacher. They're both 63. They have $600,000 in super. They have a $250,000 mortgage at 4%. They also have an investment property with a $300,000 mortgage, also at 4%. If they paid off both mortgages from their super, they'd have just $50,000 left. They'd own 2 properties outright, but have almost no liquid assets. They'd be asset-rich and cash-poor. They'd be entirely dependent on the age pension and whatever small pension they could draw from $50,000. Instead, they kept both mortgages. They retired with their full super balance. They set up an account-based pension. They used the rental income and some of their pension drawdowns to service the debts. The investment property loan interest is tax-deductible against the rental income. Over time, their super continues earning returns, the properties continue gaining value, the mortgages slowly reduce through payments, and they maintain flexibility. If they need a lump sum for medical expenses or travel, they have options. The principle: not all debt is bad debt. Context matters. Interest rates matter. Tax treatment matters. Your personal comfort level matters. Don't make blanket decisions based on myths. Make specific decisions based on your actual numbers and your actual situation. Myth number 5. Super is locked away forever once you retire. This creates a different kind of anxiety. People worry that once they move their super into retirement phase, they can't access it flexibly. They imagine it's locked into some rigid structure where they can only draw a fixed amount each year, and they can never get a lump sum if they need it. This is simply false. Once you reach your preservation age and retire, or once you reach age 65 regardless of whether you've retired, you have full access to your superannuation. Full access. You can start an account-based pension, which gives you regular income. You can take lump sum withdrawals whenever you want. You can do both. You can change your pension payment amounts within certain limits. You have enormous flexibility. The only restriction is a minimum drawdown requirement. Each year, based on your age, you must withdraw a minimum percentage of your account balance. This is typically between 4 and 5% for someone in their mid to late 60s, increasing as you get older. But there's no maximum. You can withdraw more anytime you want. You can take $50,000 for a new car, $20,000 for a grandchild's wedding, $5,000 for an unexpected medical bill, whatever you need. And here's the beautiful part. Once you're over 60 and drawing from a taxed super fund, all those withdrawals are completely tax-free. Not low tax, not concessionally taxed, zero tax. Compare that to keeping money in a bank account. Interest on that bank account is taxed at your marginal rate. If you're still earning other income, you could be paying 34.5%, including the Medicare levy on that interest. Inside super, in retirement phase, earnings are tax-free too. Your investments can grow, pay dividends, pay interest, realize capital gains, all tax-free. This is an incredibly powerful environment, and you have complete access to it. Some people think they have to choose between flexibility and tax advantages. They think they can keep money outside super for flexibility, or put it inside super for tax benefits, but not both. They don't realize that once you're in retirement phase, you get both. Let me tell you about Dorothy. She's 72. She's a widow. She has $400,000 in her super pension account. She draws the minimum each year, which covers her living costs comfortably when combined with her age pension. Last year, her hot water system died. The new system, installed, cost $6,000. She was worried. She thought she'd have to take a hardship withdrawal or jump through hoops.
I explained she could simply request a lump sum withdrawal from her super pension. She called her fund. The money was in her bank account within 3 days. No forms, no justification required, no tax. She was amazed. She'd been so worried about locking money away in super that she'd kept $100,000 sitting in a bank account, earning almost nothing and paying tax on the tiny bit of interest it did earn. After that experience, she moved that $100,000 into her super pension account. It's now earning better returns, tax-free, and she knows she can access it anytime she needs it. The principle here is simple.
Superannuation in retirement phase is not a locked box. It's a tax-free investment environment with complete access. For most retirees, there's no good reason to keep significant money outside super once you're in retirement phase. Myth number 6. You can't leave your super to your children. Estate planning causes enormous worry for retirees. You've worked hard. You've saved diligently. You want to leave something behind for your children. But you've heard that super gets taxed away when you die, or that it all goes to the government, or that your children can't inherit it. Let's clear this up once and for all. You absolutely can leave your superannuation to your children or anyone else you choose. You do this through a binding death benefit nomination. However, there are tax implications that depend on who receives it and their relationship to you. If you leave your super to your spouse, it's completely tax-free. Your spouse can receive it as a lump sum or roll it into their own super. No tax. If you leave your super to a financial dependent, which includes children under 18 or adult children who were financially dependent on you, it's also tax-free. But if you leave your super to adult children who were not financially dependent on you, which is most adult children, they will pay tax on the taxable component. The tax rate is currently 15% plus Medicare levy on the taxable component. That's not insignificant. On a $400,000 super balance with a $300,000 taxable component, your children might pay around $50,000 in tax. But here's what people miss. $50,000 in tax on a $400,000 inheritance means your children still receive $350,000. That's a significant gift. That's life-changing money for many families. Compare that to the myth that they'll get nothing or that the government will take it all. They won't. They'll receive the vast majority of it. Now, are there strategies to reduce this tax? Yes. Some people draw down their super more quickly in retirement and gift money to children during their lifetime, within Centrelink gifting limits. Some people use their super to pay off their home, which then passes to children tax-free. Some people use life insurance held inside super to create a larger death benefit that can be structured tax-effectively. But the fundamental point is this: your super doesn't disappear when you die. It goes where you direct it through your binding nomination. And while there may be tax for adult non-dependent children, they still receive substantial value. Let me tell you about George and Helen. They had $800,000 in super combined. They had 2 adult children, both in their 40s, with families of their own. George and Helen were worried. They'd heard their kids would lose half to tax if they inherited the super. They considered cashing out their super, paying off their house, buying an investment property in their own names, all to avoid this supposed tax disaster. When we sat down and did the actual mathematics, the tax bill for their children would have been around $90,000 on $800,000, about 11%. Their kids would still receive over $700,000 to split between them. More importantly, if George and Helen moved money out of super into property or other investments, those assets would earn taxable income during their retirement. They'd pay tax every year on rental income, on bank interest, on dividends. Over 20 years, that annual taxation could easily exceed the one-time death benefit tax. They decided to keep their money in super. They enjoyed the tax-free earnings, they drew tax-free pension payments, they lived well. And yes, when they eventually passed away, their children paid some tax. But those children still received enough money to pay off their mortgages and change their lives. The principle? Don't let the tail wag the dog. Don't make massive structural changes to avoid a modest tax bill. Keep your money in the most tax-effective environment during your lifetime. Your children will be fine. Myth number 7. Downsizing your home is always a good idea. This final myth is perhaps the most emotionally charged, and it's complicated because for some people downsizing is exactly the right move. For others, it's a costly mistake. The logic seems impeccable. You're in your late 60s, your kids have moved out, you're living in a 4-bedroom house with a large yard, you're struggling to maintain it, the house is worth $800,000. You could sell up, buy a smaller unit for $500,000, put $300,000 into super or investments, have less maintenance, lower costs, more money for retirement. On paper, it's perfect. But here's what people often don't consider: the transaction costs, the emotional costs, the loss of capital growth, and the age pension implications. Let's start with transaction costs. Selling a home costs money. Real estate agent commissions can be 2 to 3% of the sale price. That's $16,000 to $24,000 on an $800,000 home. Then there are legal fees, moving costs. Buying the new property incurs stamp duty in most states, legal fees again, connection fees for utilities, immediate maintenance or renovation costs in the new place to make it feel like home. By the time you add all this up, you might have spent $80,000 to $100,000 in transaction costs. Suddenly, that $300,000 profit is looking more like $200,000. But there's more. Your home game is exempt from the age pension assets test. It doesn't matter if it's worth $400,000 or $4 million. It's not counted. But when you sell and downsize, that $200,000 you freed up, that now counts as an assessable asset. Depending on your other assets, this could reduce your age pension entitlement. Over a 20-year retirement, a reduced pension could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And here's the emotional element that's impossible to quantify. Your home is not just an asset. It's where you've raised your family. It's where the memories are. It's the familiar neighborhood, the familiar shops, the familiar doctor, the friends down the street. When you move, especially when you downsize to a unit or retirement village, you're often starting over socially. You're the new person. You're older. It's harder to make deep friendships. Some people thrive in this transition. They love the fresh start. They love the lower maintenance. They love meeting new people. But others decline. I've seen it. They become depressed, isolated. They regret the move. And by then, it's often too late. The old house has been sold. They can't afford to buy it back after prices have risen. Now, I'm not saying never downsize. For many people, it's the right choice. If your home genuinely is too large, too difficult to maintain, too expensive to run, and you're excited about the change, then go for it. But don't do it just because someone told you it's what retirees should do. Don't do it solely for financial reasons without understanding the full financial picture, including transaction costs and age pension effects. And please, don't do it assuming the money you free up will dramatically change your retirement. $200,000 sounds like a lot, but earning 5% per year, that's only $10,000 annually. That might not justify the disruption, the cost, and the emotional upheaval. Here's a better approach for many people. Instead of downsizing, right-size your home for aging. Put in grab rails, improve lighting, install a walk-in shower, make one bedroom and bathroom on the ground floor. Spend $20,000 or $30,000 on modifications. You can stay in the home you love, safely, for much longer. And if you're worried about maintenance, hire help. A gardener, a cleaner, someone to do repairs. Even spending several $1,000s per year on help is far cheaper than the transaction costs of moving. Let me tell you about Patricia and William. They were 70 and 68. Their 4-bedroom house had a big garden. Their kids kept telling them to downsize. They were torn. William loved his garden. It was his retirement project. Patricia loved being near her sister, who lived 3 streets away. But they felt guilty. They felt like they were taking up space. They felt like they should downsize. We ran the numbers. After transaction costs, they'd free up about $170,000. That extra money would reduce their part-age pension by about $5,000 per year. The net benefit was minimal. And that didn't account for the potential capital growth of their current home, which was in a high-demand area. They decided to stay. They hired a gardener for 2 hours a week. They had a cleaner fortnightly. They spent $15,000 on bathroom modifications to make it safer. 5 years later, they couldn't be happier. William still tends his beloved garden, just with some help. Patricia sees her sister weekly. Their home has increased in value by $200,000, far more than they would have earned on the freed-up capital. And most importantly, they're happy, content, at peace in their home. The principle? Your home is more than an asset. It's your castle, your sanctuary. Don't make decisions about it solely based on what you think you're supposed to do. Make decisions based on what's right for you with all factors considered. The solutions. What should you actually do? We've spent considerable time unpacking these 7 myths. Now let's talk about solutions. What should you actually do? First, get clear on your numbers. Not hypothetical numbers, not what you think you should have, your actual numbers. What do you have in super? What do you have in other savings? What's your home worth? What debts do you have? What are your current living expenses? Write it all down. Create a simple spreadsheet. Or use one of the many free online calculators provided by organizations like MoneySmart, which is run by ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. Once you know where you stand, estimate your age pension entitlement. The Department of Human Services has an online estimator. Use it. You might be pleasantly surprised. Second, understand your spending. Most people overestimate how much they'll spend in retirement. Your costs will change. No more work clothes, no more commuting, no more expensive lunches, no more buying coffees on the run. But you'll spend more on leisure, more on health care as you age, more on home maintenance if you're staying in your home. Track your spending for a few months. See where your money actually goes. Then project that into retirement, adjusting for the changes you know will occur. Third, get professional advice. And I don't mean a free seminar selling you expensive financial products. I mean a licensed financial advisor who charges a transparent fee and works in your best interest. Yes, advice costs money. A good advisor might charge $2,000 to $3,000 for comprehensive retirement planning. But that advice could save you tens of thousands over your retirement. It could help you structure your affairs to maximize your age pension. It could help you invest wisely. It could give you peace of mind. That peace of mind alone is priceless. Fourth, don't make sudden, dramatic moves. Don't cash out your super. Don't sell your house. Don't give large gifts to your kids without understanding the implications. Reversing these decisions is difficult or impossible. Take your time. Test scenarios. Model different approaches. Sleep on it. Discuss it